Well, there's been a setback in the Julian Assange case. Last week, the High Court in the UK rejected the latest appeal by the Wikileaks founder against an extradition order issued by the United States. With us now to tell us more about what this means is Misty Winston. Misty is an activist and the organizer of Action for Assange. Misty, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So give us, what does this mean? So what was the appeal and where are we at with everything?
Okay, so last year, actually, this has been 8 or 9 months ago, the Assange defense team submitted what's called the perfected grounds for appeal. And essentially that was just, they had already appealed, that had been denied. And then the perfected grounds for appeal was basically just them reformulating the appeal and then resubmitting it. It's kind of like a Hail Mary. That was denied as of yesterday by a singular judge who wrote just a 3-page rejection of the request for an appeal. So it is fascinating to me that it took that long for them to come up with something 8 or 9 months later. So basically what this means is that Assange is now left with a couple more domestic options in terms of being in the UK. He is tomorrow, in fact, Stella Assange put out a statement saying that tomorrow they are going to be resubmitting that request for an appeal. It will then go to a panel of 2 judges, and then they will have what is supposed to be a public hearing. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to play out. They generally like to keep that kind of stuff behind closed doors. So we'll see if it is in fact a public hearing, but that is supposed to be the plan. There will be a public hearing on the matter, and then there will be a decision made from there. We don't have a timeline. Of course, there's never any timeline in this case. It's always something that they tend to like to drag out as long as they can. I did just speak to Gabriel Shipton though, and he said that as far as he knows, this could be something that is as soon as July. So we could potentially see Julian Assange on a plane on his way to the Eastern District of Virginia as soon as July. So
Wow.
he can also, if that is rejected, he can also go to the European Court of Human Rights. Gabriel said that he will exhaust all legal options, but he's unsure of exactly what impact the European Court of Human Rights will have. Apparently, there's some political unrest between the UK and the European Court of Human Rights. So we're not sure if they'll even recognize the jurisdiction of the European Court of Human Rights, but that is also a potential option.
I just don't think that any of us really believed, at least I certainly didn't, that the UK would stop the extradition. I just think that they will allow every legal means to happen, of course, because they have to, but they have no intention of actually holding Assange there. They want to extradite him. They're in cahoots with the United States. Is that the feeling that you're getting as well? I mean, so then what is the plan for the legal? I guess the Hail Mary, you could always put a Hail Mary out there for sure and hope that a judge says, actually, we shouldn't be extraditing this guy. But
it's not looking good.
I don't know what they can do to stop him.
It's not looking good. I think that anybody who's been paying attention to this case has been under the understanding that the UK court system is completely co-opted. They are working under the direction of the United States. I think that's been very apparent from day one. I think that there's been numerous conflicts of interest exposed, all of the different relationships that these people have, and it's a very convoluted web of just insanity that they have all of these conflicts of interest. But I think that there's no question that I don't think that we're going to see justice in the court system here. I think that, and what I've been saying for years is that it is going to take mass public pressure for this thing to stop. It is going to take people making it politically untenable for the United States to continue this persecution of a journalist. So we've seen support growing for Assange over the course of the past, specifically 4 years since he has been arrested. It's not happening fast enough, unfortunately. I think that, being the fact that he has entered into his 5th year now, being held in a high security prison in the UK is a tragedy. But I think that we are seeing that kind of support growing. I just hope that it happens fast enough for him.
Yeah. I don't know if it'll happen until he's here on American soil, and then it becomes a real serious imminent issue that American journalists will have to face. It'll be no longer something the New York Times, the Washington Post, all of these heritage mainstream organizations are not going to be able to ignore it if the case is happening right here on American soil. If he's locked away in the Ecuadorian embassy or he's in Belmarsh in London, that's one thing. But actually being here on trial for publishing documents, that's not going to be easy to ignore. What do you think is going to happen when he is here and that is happening? Do you think there will be that groundswell and there might be pressure on the government?
Yes, I think I absolutely agree with you. And I think that that's why there's been such an effort to delay this as long as possible. Frankly, I don't think that the Biden administration really wants to have him on American soil because, as you just said, I think that that will light a fire. I think that that opens
Yeah.
up Pandora's box. And I'm not sure that that's something that they want. I think it opens up them up to scrutiny. People are going to then be very curious about this case, people who were otherwise not interested before. And for sure, it means that legacy media in the United States it's going to be much more difficult for them to ignore the situation that's happening. It then becomes a stateside story. It then becomes something that is very difficult for them to ignore. And we've seen over the course of the past 6 or 8 months or so, I mean, we saw the letter that was released by the big 5 publishing partners that worked with WikiLeaks on the releases in 2010 and 2011, the New York Times, the Washington Post, El País, Der Spiegel, and Le Monde. And so that is definitely, that I think that's a little bit of a breach in the floodgate. And I think that if he is in fact brought to the United States, it's going to be something that they are no longer going to be able to ignore.
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen? I guess I should say, which presidency, Republican or Democrat, do you think would be the most likely to drop the charges?
Oh
It's a tough
God.
one, right? It's a tough
That is a
one.
tough. I honestly don't even know if I have an answer for that. I genuinely thought that when Biden was elected, that was maybe an opening. I thought that surely a Democratic presidency was not going to want to be seen as continuing the Trump attacks on press freedom. And I thought that that would for sure be a way that we would be able to get his freedom. I didn't think that but that Biden would want to be seen as continuing that Trump abuse on the First Amendment. I was wrong. He doesn't seem to have an issue at all with continuing the case against Assange. So I'm honestly not sure. I think I don't think it honestly matters which party is in office. Again, I just think it's going to come down to that mass public pressure, and whichever president is in office, when we can reach that kind of that point of support where it becomes too loud for them to continue. I think that that's it. It won't matter who it is. I think there will become a point where it becomes just untenable for them to continue it in the public opinion.
Well, Trump nearly did pardon him, except Mike Pompeo apparently got into his ear and said, no, he's a murderer. He killed, he put lives in danger, which was just a bunch of bull. I mean, Mike Pompeo, okay. But so it makes me wonder, part of me thinks, okay, a Republican maybe would be more likely to drop the charges against him because the people most angry at Julian Assange are Democrats, right? They think that
Currently,
Hillary Clinton
yes.
lost the election because of Julian Assange. So it would be, so it's tough, right? Because if you've got these legacy media companies like the Washington Post and New York Times who are seen as completely liberal, if they're the ones pressuring the government, then it's maybe the Biden administration would be, or a Democrat administration would be more likely to drop the charges. But then there's the issue of the Hillary Clinton machine in the campaign there that's really angry with Assange and even talked about assassinating the guy.
Yeah.
But so there's that, right? But then on the Republican side, I don't know how effective it would be for legacy media like Washington Post and New York Times, these liberal organizations, to be pressuring, saying you've got to drop the charges against Assange. I don't know how that plays out when the pressure's coming from the left, essentially, in the eyes of a Republican administration. So this is a real tough one.
Yeah, I think that what we do have going for us in terms of a Republican president is that, in my experience, the Republican voter base is much more supportive of Julian Assange than the liberal voter base. As you said,
weird?
they are. It is. It's very strange to me. I will say, though, that it is because of what you just mentioned, the 2016 WikiLeaks releases about Hillary Clinton. That's very fresh in their memory. Previous to that, they were supporters of Julian Assange and of WikiLeaks. In fact, Julian Assange gave a TED Talk. He received a standing ovation in a room full of liberals. So at one time they did support Julian Assange, and it's very frustrating to me to witness that kind of tribalism where it's not about the principle of free speech and press freedom. It's about my team and what you've done to injure my team. But currently, there is a much broader base of support for Julian Assange amongst Republicans and libertarians and that kind of group. So I think that we might not get a lot of pressure from legacy media that would make much difference to Republicans, but I do think that voter base would be much more vocal and put a lot more pressure on a Republican president, and I think that might be effective.
Well, it seems that way until those strategists get involved. Once they're strategists and they're paid millions of dollars to figure out how to manipulate the minds of Americans, and they can figure out that, well, but the right wing tends to be more about law and order, tends to be more about protecting military personnel, and so and that's why Mike Pompeo was able to get into Trump's ear and say, no, this would be a disaster. You can't let Assange go, because this hurt the military, this hurt law and order. And, so if they could manipulate the minds of people that are currently in support, because like you mentioned, with the TED Talk and the standing ovation with liberals, minds can be easily manipulated and changed on a dime. Seems like anything can make them change their minds.
And that's, I think that's unfortunate. I think that, as I said, it should be more about a principle and not about whatever waning political party stuff that's going on. Unfortunately, it's just really not the case for most people. I think that there's a lot of tribalism, and you're right. They're very easily able to manipulate the minds of people in this country, as we have seen time and time again. So I will just say that currently that is the case. Obviously, that is subject to change at any moment. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I think, Julian Assange has managed to make angry just about every major power position all across the globe. So he's made all the right people angry, which I think is good for us, bad for him. So it's really really difficult to say moving forward what's going to happen or where the best line of support would come from, because that is subject to change at a moment.
And one thing to keep in mind, as much as we'd like to think that these legacy media these outlets would have major outcry once he's here and actually being charged and tried, but maybe they wouldn't. I mean, look at what the New York Times did. They went after the Jack Teixeira. They acted like the cops, right? Doing the investigation. Oh, we found the guy. Here he is. We're turning him into you, the guy that leaked these documents. The press is operating almost like, we don't want what happened to Julian Assange to happen to us, and so we're going to act like pseudo FBI on behalf of the security state. And so
that's an
that
astonishing
makes me a bit
development.
Nervous.
An astonishing development that mainstream media, that major news, the New York Times, people who are supposed to be protecting sources are the ones actively hunting them down and trying to get them caught. It's and that is really disturbing.
Yeah,
really
it's
disturbing.
a new world. Misty Winston, thank you so much for joining us. She is also the co-host of Action for Assange Vigils, and also hosts the Misty Winston Show on TNT Radio, which you just had. Gabriel Shipton, which is Julian Assange's brother, right? You just had him on today, actually, and spoke to him, so people can check out that episode. Misty, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Kim. I appreciate it.
Well, are you worried about the value of the dollar? Maybe you should be. Saudi Arabia is clearly turning away from the dollar as the main trading currency for oil, which has largely made the dollar the global currency. But now the Saudi monarchy has been discussing using Chinese currency for payments and has been meeting with leaders like Venezuela's Maduro and welcoming an Iranian embassy. So the dollar seems to be losing its place as the world currency, and this has many people concerned about the value of their investment funds. But there's one asset that has withstood economic upheaval and has a history of being incredibly stable, and that is gold. And you can own it in a tax-sheltered retirement account with the help of Birch Gold. That's right, Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k, maybe from a previous employer, into an IRA in gold. And the best part, you don't pay a penny out of pocket. Just visit birchgold.com/Kim for your free info kit. They're going to hold your hand through the whole process. Birch Gold has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of happy customers. So visit birchgold.com/Kim to get your free info kit on gold. Again, visit birchgold.com/Kim.